Hello and welcome once again to this will be day This will be day number 6 of my ongoing series of going throughout the month of July, and I'm calling it my series of White Thugs of Hell. The picture here, for those of y'all who basically was around during the time of the 80s, mid to late 80s, early to mid 90s, the face that you see here should strike a chord to you. This troglodyte is none other than the very late, former Los Angeles police chief Darryl Gates. He definitely had made my list, because the fact of the matter is, this is the same man who under that Planet Peanut president we had, Ronald frickin' Reagan, who basically was a key component in the so-called war on drugs, and he ramped up a lot of stuff that was down there in LA and throughout Southern California. You seen the pictures of you seeing ATVs, well, not ATVs, APVs, amphibious personnel vehicles, tanks and all that, running down the streets of South Central Los Angeles, Compton, Watts, everywhere like that. The so-called Reagan's orders of battling gangs down there in LA during the late 80s, and I'm talking about from like 86 on to 89. Around that time, a very prominent rap group came from that area. You know, niggas with attitudes: Easy, Ice Cube, Easy, may he rise in power, Dr. Dre, Ren, Yella, Arabian Prince. It was a lot more of them before the 5 we know. Darryl Gates is basically, he ran something like a Gestapo type tactics that they used to go ahead to call himself battling so-called gangs, but mostly he basically targeted black people. This motherfucker here was nothing more than just a grand wizard wearing a badge and 4 stars on his damn collar. You know. Now, the only obstacle that really stood in his way when it came to Offset was at the time the mayor, the late Tom Bradley, who some people I've heard they say he was a coon and he wasn't. If anybody disagrees, you can prove me wrong or whatever, but you know. But this is the focus on this cocksucker here. Darryl Gates was the worst of the worst. He targeted not only black, but he also targeted Latino people, and it really came to a head. The infamous 1992 riots is when them four officers, Stacy Coon, Timothy Wynn, the worst of the bunch, Lawrence Powell, and of course Theodore Brzezinski, the 4 officers that beat Rodney King. You know, he passed away too, man. He rise in power as well. Helpless on the street. You know, I think we all saw it in the 90s. The whole world saw it. We probably would have never heard nothing about it if not for George Holiday. George Holiday, who happened to be the Caucasian guy who bought a video camera, and you know, he wanted to go ahead and test it out, and he seen this and he recorded it. He ain't bought no cheap video recorder. He bought one of the ones that the TV news stations got. Okay? and he's the one that turned the tape over to the newspaper. He said he didn't want no money. He didn't want no compensation. He wanted to expose the LAPD for police brutality. And this goes to prove my point even more, that not every white person is a white supremacist. Point per se. And that there, we all saw it. You know, Rodney King, never forgot the vision. I still vision in my head how he was like mummified or whatever like that. And then the trial that went to Simi Valley. Simi Valley is like no different than just what just happened in Falcon Heights, Minnesota, with the Yanez trial. Same scenario 30 years later. Because Simi Valley was no different to what that little community there in Minnesota was. A bunch of retired cops or people who lived in that community that was very pro-cop and anti-black, anti-brown, anti-yellow, anti-red. Now, keep in mind, during that time here in my own backyard here in Miami, we were dealing with our own police corruption too. You know, and our own type police, corrupted police chief. But I'm gonna make that special day for his ass later. But Darryl Gates reminds me so much of the one we had here when I was going to high school. And when they found those them fuckers not guilty, you know, Stacey Coon is still around, if I'm not mistaken, who was the supervising officer at that time, the sergeant. Powell was the one that kept relentlessly beating Rodney King. Now, Theodore Brzezinski, I don't want to keep saying Brzezinski, I think Brasino or something, you know, you see him only like, I can't really say he kicked Rodney King, he stumped Rodney King. No, I think he was keeping his head down to keep him from moving. But here's my thing with him, Brazinio. If you wanted to keep his head, keep him from moving, to keep from getting hit, why you just ain't jumped in the way of Powell from keep on hitting him? When it was a non-factor. He was a rookie. He didn't know no better. Now, it doesn't matter the fact of the matter that Rodney King was driving drunk. He was riding a white Hyundai. Nonetheless. But the one word that Stacey Coon has said, his last name is Coon. The Rodney King saying, "What's up, nigga?" But when they found those 4 crackers not guilty, what you saw was a powder keg that exploded. Everybody saw it. The whole country saw it. Bloods and Crips who've been beefing with each other for years, they looked at it and said, hold up, why the hell we fighting against each other? The police was our common enemy. And when they locked up, oh, it was on. It was on and popping. Because let's just keep it 100. Even to this day, I don't even want to call them gangs. Those sets totally outnumbered the police. And when Bloods and Crips came together, oh, it was on. It was on. LAPD, County PD, LA County Sheriff, they couldn't do shit. We all seen it all on TV. We seen motherfuckers when they were burning the buildings and tearing it up. Everybody thought like, oh, they just gonna go find their neighborhood. Oh, no, the hell they didn't. Soon as that happened, they went up in the upscale white area. You seen them ran all through Beverly Hills. But see, here's where the news media try to control the narrative and how evil and wicked the mainstream media was. They wanted to try to get out there and say it was black people that was doing the riotings and stuff like that. I was watching it on TV on Channel 7 News. At that time, Rick Sanchez was still an anchor at that time. Rick Sanchez, yes, people down here in Miami should remember him. He was he killed the man out there at now known as Hard Rock Stadium years ago, driving drunk, out there cussing and swearing. Big old, Cuban dude, but he's an asshole. But on this tip, Rick Sanchez was absolutely right. He's even said like that. He said, man, I see white people running up in and out of there looting and stealing. How you gonna say it's black people that's doing it? Although Rick Sanchez was a racist, and he couldn't even say nothing about it. He couldn't even put a spin on it because it was right there in front of him, so he had to go along with that. But the point of the matter is, there was whites were the ones doing all the looting and the robbing. The shit that happened in Beverly Hills, there were white people doing that. This piece of garbage right here, when Mayor Bradley at that time told him you need to step down, Darryl Gates refused to step down. And see, it got worse on top of that. You have cats started busting back at the police. And then here's what the media try to do. They try to put a narrative on here saying that they were hitting up Korean owned stores. No, the Koreans were upset about the verdict as much as anybody else, because you didn't think they get handled by the police a lot, by the LAPD a lot. Yeah, they did. But they try to put a spin on it saying Korean store owners were shooting back at black gangs and all that. That wasn't even the fact. I could tell you this firsthand. Even we felt the tremor all the way here in Miami, Florida, as well as everywhere else. Everybody started popping off. It popped off in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Phoenix, Las Vegas, Seattle, Minnesota, Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland, everywhere. They were even scared even New York was going to pop off. Atlanta and everywhere else we were popping off everywhere else in the South. Now, brothers down here in Miami, we was already ready shit to go, because Miami here is known as Chopper City. Now I ain't gonna say no more on that. But then here, what happened? You had some local preachers come out there that everybody just need to chill like that. Man, please, we weren't even trying to hear that shit. The point of the matter is, you had 4 cops beat this man down like a dog. That shit reminded me so much of what Miami PD did to Arthur McDuffie 40 years ago. I was still a teenager at that time. Oh yeah, Miami PD was just as bad as LAPD. But LAPD just took the cake. Because down here, what we refer to the LA at that time, we referred to it as Lower Alabama. Because after all, majority of those guys that was in the Los Angeles Police Department, mostly Caucasian, wouldn't know what Klansmen. But the point of the matter was even like this. Even Ice-T at that time was even saying, when that shit happened, he say, man, what's y'all gonna do? Y'all gonna let this shit slide? But when we heard that the buildings and all that shit was burning up, I was one of the ones, I said, yeah, I hope they keep doing it. Burn that bitch down to the ground. I said it. And I don't regret saying it. I said it 25 years ago, and I'm going to say it now. Burn that bitch down to the ground. Now, what happened to Reginald Denny? Hey, casualty of war. He was at the wrong place at the wrong time, unfortunately. Now, I also seen at the same time, Arsenio Hall made a little plea, like, tell everybody saying this ain't the way how to do it, blah, blah, blah. He had a couple of his white friends right there and all this other stuff like that. And then here come Geraldo Rivera appearing on the show. That's at the time when Geraldo Rivera had sense, before he started doing his buck dancing he's doing now on Fox. Racist big fucker. You know, he born Puerto Rican, but he want to claim to be a Jew. Get the fuck out of here. That you 70 fucking years old and shit. You still on some dumb shit. This the same Geraldo Rivera who back in 2012 said that Trayvon Martin got killed because he was what he wore got him killed. That shit was so infuriating from Geraldo, even his own son don't even acknowledge him. So in that case, if I was Tracy and Sabina Fulton, I wouldn't accept his apology. Fuck him. All of them appeared on Arsenio Hall show and stuff, you know. Ice-T at that time, he ain't give a shit. He said, the city of LA, 59 people were killed. In the city, it cost the city $1 billion in damages. Who was the president at that time? Bush 41. George Herbert W. Bush. Bush Sr. After he couldn't get rid of Saddam, you know, but he decided to want to go ahead and bring tanks and the National Guard into South Central LA. Bush referred to the people in South Central LA and Compton and everywhere else, referred to them as savages. But then again, there ain't no surprise, because even in his old decrepit old ass and shit, he still got contacts and stuff in higher places. And plus, he's skull and bones. What you expect? Anyway, let's fast forward right now. Darryl Gates stepped down as police chief in 1992, and he was replaced by token Negro Willie Williams. You know, does that remind you of what happened here in Sanford, up in Florida in Sanford, 2012? You know, the Sanford police chief, that same cracker, he got replaced by a black police chief, Cecil, what's his name now? You know, and he ain't speaking volumes for it. They just want to put a black face there to show they felt. But he's married to a Caucasian woman, so he really ain't got no understanding with that. Same thing they did in Ferguson. Got the Ferguson police chief Tom Jackson out there, and they bring my man Delrich Moss as the new Ferguson police chief. They got it. That's by design. But anyway, though, the focus is on Darryl Gates. After 1992, he went on ahead, wrote some bullshit ass book, was doing all his charity. Now in 2010 of April, he passed away. As far as I'm concerned, I hope he burns he burns for eternity. Good riddance to bad rubbish. He was no doubt a thug from hell, and he went back home to where the fuck he belonged. And he got right exactly what he deserved. And has anything changed with the Lower Alabama Police Department? I think not. Christopher Dorner can attest to that, as he took a few of them fools out in 2013. But Darryl Gates is basically a pivot stone. But let's not even skip between 92. How about in 95, 96, where another person that was on that police department, who I will talk about, he is also going to be mentioned in this series, and he was a badge from LA, and I will discuss about him later on throughout this series, because he definitely had made my list. But as far as Darryl Gates, nobody misses him. We don't miss him. Okay? Because the only good thing he did, he spawned the birth of NWA. He also spawned the birth of the song that Ice Cube wrote, Fuck the Police. And now you know why. Darryl Gates was the cause of that, and that was the effect. As far as I'm concerned, Shit, I hope he burns slow for all eternity. Fuck Darryl Gates.